Ron had always felt a sense of unease whenever he ventured down into the basement of his old Victorian home. It wasn't just the dim lighting or the musty smell that sent shivers down his spine. There was something inherently sinister about the place that he couldn't quite put his finger on. Despite his apprehension, Ron often found himself descending the creaky wooden stairs into the depths of the basement. His wife, Sarah, frequently sent him down to fetch boxes of old belongings or to check on the boiler. Each time, Ron's heart would race as he reluctantly made his way into the gloomy space. One evening, as Ron was rummaging through some old storage boxes, he stumbled upon a peculiar item buried beneath a pile of dusty blankets. It was a tattered journal, its pages yellowed with age and its leather cover worn from years of neglect. Curiosity piqued, Ron flipped open the journal and began to read. The entries detailed the experiences of a previous resident of the house, a man named Thomas, who had lived there in the late 1800s. As Ron delved deeper into the journal, he discovered accounts of strange occurrences that had taken place in the basement. Mysterious whispers in the dead of night, inexplicable shadows that seemed to move of their own accord, and sightings of a ghostly figure lurking in the darkness. Despite his skepticism, Ron couldn't shake the feeling of dread that washed over him as he read Thomas's words. He quickly snapped the journal shut and stuffed it into his pocket, eager to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the basement. As he climbed the stairs back to the main floor of the house, Ron couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced nervously over his shoulder, half expecting to see a shadowy figure lurking in the stairwell behind him. But the space remained empty, save for the faint glow of the single bulb illuminating the basement below. Ron tried to push aside his growing unease as he rejoined Sarah in the cozy living room upstairs. But no matter how hard he tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination running wild, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something sinister lurking in the depths of the basement, waiting to reveal itself. Days passed, but Ron couldn't shake the feeling of foreboding that hung over him like a dark cloud. He found himself drawn back to the basement time and time again, unable to resist the pull of the mysterious journal and the secrets it contained. Late one night, unable to sleep, Ron found himself descending the stairs into the basement once more. Armed with a flashlight and the journal clutched tightly in his hand, he began to explore the dimly lit space in search of answers. As he wandered through the maze of old furniture and forgotten belongings, Ron couldn't shake the feeling that he was being guided by an unseen force. He followed the whispers of the past, his footsteps echoing loudly in the empty space as he traced the path described in Thomas's journal. Suddenly, Ron froze in his tracks as a cold breeze swept through the basement, sending a chill down his spine. In the dim light of his flashlight, he thought he caught a glimpse of something, a shadowy figure darting out of sight behind a stack of old crates. Heart pounding, Ron cautiously approached the crates, his hand trembling as he reached out to brush aside the cobwebs that clung to their surface. But when he peered behind them, the space was empty, save for a single dusty mirror hanging on the wall. As Ron stared into the reflection, his blood ran cold. For staring back at him was not his own face, but the twisted visage of a ghostly figure, a spectral presence that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the mirror itself. With a gasp, Ron stumbled backward, his heart racing as he scrambled to escape the basement and the horrors that lurked within. But as he reached the top of the stairs and slammed the door shut behind him, he knew that he could never truly leave the darkness of the basement behind. Ron's nights became sleepless, plagued by vivid dreams of the ghostly figure he had seen in the basement mirror. Each night, he would find himself drawn back to the darkness of the Victorian house, wandering the labyrinthine halls in search of answers that remained just out of reach. Desperate for a reprieve from the haunting visions, Ron turned to the journal once more, hoping to find some clue that would help him make sense of the inexplicable events unfolding around him. But as he pored over the faded pages, he found only cryptic passages and ominous warnings of the darkness that lurked within the house. Determined to uncover the truth, Ron embarked on a quest to unravel the mysteries of the past. He delved into the history of the Victorian house, scouring old records and newspaper archives for any mention of the ghostly occurrences that had plagued its former residents. The more Ron uncovered, the more he realized that the house held secrets far darker than he could have ever imagined. He discovered tales of tragedy and loss, of lives cut short by untimely deaths, and unspeakable horrors that had unfolded within the walls of the old mansion. Haunted by the specter of the past, Ron found himself consumed by a sense of urgency, a need to confront the darkness that lurked within the depths of the basement and put an end to the haunting visions that tormented him night after night. Armed with newfound determination, Ron descended once more into the depths of the basement, his heart pounding in his chest as he braced himself for whatever horrors awaited him below. With each step, the air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to grow darker, swirling around him like tendrils of smoke. But Ron pressed on, his flashlight cutting through the darkness as he navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the basement, guided by an unseen force that seemed to beckon him ever deeper into the depths. Finally, he reached the heart of the basement, a small, forgotten chamber hidden away behind a crumbling brick wall. As Ron stepped into the dimly lit space, he felt a chill run down his spine. For there, standing before him, was the ghostly figure he had seen in the mirror, a spectral presence that seemed to radiate with an otherworldly energy. But instead of recoiling in fear, Ron stood his ground, his gaze locked with the ghostly apparition as he confronted the darkness that had plagued him for so long. And as he did, he felt a sense of clarity wash over him, a realization that the key to overcoming the darkness lay not in fear, but in understanding. With a trembling hand, Ron reached out to the ghostly figure, his touch sending ripples of energy coursing through the room. And as he made contact, he felt a surge of power course through him, a surge of power that banished the darkness once and for all, leaving behind nothing but a sense of peace and resolution in its wake. It was a place of mystery and darkness, where secrets seemed to lurk in every corner. Despite his curiosity, he had never dared to venture down there alone. But as he grew older, the urge to uncover the truth became too strong to resist. One stormy night, with the rain pounding against the windows and lightning illuminating the sky, Danny decided it was time to confront his fears. Armed with nothing but a flashlight, he made his way down the creaky wooden steps into the depths below. The air was thick with dust and cobwebs, and the darkness seemed to swallow his light. But Danny pressed on, his heart pounding in his chest. As he explored further, he came across old boxes filled with forgotten belongings and furniture draped in dusty sheets. But then, something caught his eye. A trapdoor hidden beneath a pile of old rugs in the corner of the basement. With trembling hands, Danny lifted the trapdoor and peered into the darkness below. What he saw made his blood run cold. A narrow staircase descended into the depths, disappearing into blackness. It was as if the basement had a basement of its own. With a mixture of fear and curiosity, Danny descended the staircase, each step echoing in the silence. As he reached the bottom, he found himself in a small, cramped room. The walls were lined with shelves filled with jars of pickled vegetables and strange, unidentifiable objects. But what caught Danny's attention was a door at the far end of the room, barely visible in the dim light. With a sense of dread, Danny approached the door and turned the rusty handle. It creaked open, revealing a long, dark corridor stretching into the unknown. Without hesitation, Danny stepped inside, his flashlight piercing the darkness ahead. But as he ventured further into the depths, he began to hear strange noises echoing through the corridor. It sounded like whispers, faint and muffled, as if coming from the walls themselves. Danny's heart raced as he realized he was not alone in the basement. Danny's pulse quickened with each step he took down the ominous corridor. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if urging him to turn back. But he pressed on, driven by a combination of fear and an overwhelming desire to uncover the truth. The walls seemed to close in around him, suffocating him with their oppressive darkness. His flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. But Danny refused to let his fear consume him. He had come too far to turn back now. Finally, he reached the end of the corridor and found himself standing before another door. This one was different from the others he had encountered, ornately carved with strange symbols etched into its surface. Danny hesitated for a moment, his hand trembling as he reached out to touch the door. But before he could open it, he heard a sound that froze him in his tracks. Footsteps echoing from the other side. Someone, or something, was on the other side of that door, waiting for him. With a surge of adrenaline, Danny pushed open the door and stepped into the room beyond. What he saw sent a shiver down his spine. The room was bathed in a sickly green light, emanating from a series of strange, glowing crystals embedded in the walls. In the center of the room stood a figure cloaked in shadows, its features obscured by darkness. Danny's breath caught in his throat as he realized he was not alone. But before he could react, the figure spoke, its voice low and chilling. "Welcome, Danny," it said, sending a chill down his spine. "I've been expecting you." Danny's mind raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. Who was this mysterious figure? And what did they want with him? As the figure stepped into the light, Danny's eyes widened in disbelief. It was his own father, his features twisted into a sinister grin that sent a shiver down Danny's spine. "Dad?" Danny stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here? What is all this?" His father's grin widened, sending a chill down Danny's spine. "I've been waiting for you, Danny," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "Waiting for you to discover the truth." Danny's mind reeled as he tried to process his father's words. What truth could he possibly be talking about? And why had his father led him into this dark, sinister place? But before Danny could speak, his father reached out a hand, beckoning him closer. "Come, Danny," he said. "There's something I need to show you." With a sense of dread, Danny approached his father, his every instinct screaming at him to run. But a morbid curiosity kept him rooted to the spot as his father led him further into the room. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a small ornate box. It seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, drawing Danny in like a moth to a flame. His father turned to him, his eyes gleaming with an unholy light. "Open it, Danny," he said. "Open it, and all will be revealed." With trembling hands, Danny reached out and lifted the lid of the box. What he saw inside made his blood run cold. Nestled within the box was a human skull, its empty eye sockets staring up at him with a vacant gaze. Danny recoiled in horror, bile rising in his throat. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice trembling with fear. His father's grin widened, his eyes burning with madness. "This, Danny," he said, his voice echoing through the room, "is the key to our family's legacy." Danny's mind reeled as he struggled to comprehend his father's words. What dark secrets had been lurking in the depths of the basement all these years? And what did it mean for him and his family? But before he could find answers, darkness enveloped him, and everything went black. When Danny awoke, he found himself lying on the cold, damp floor of the basement. The box and his father were nowhere to be seen, as if they had vanished into thin air. Shaken and disoriented, Danny stumbled to his feet and made his way back up the stairs, his mind whirling with unanswered questions. As he emerged into the dim light of the basement, he knew that he would never be the same again. The truth he had uncovered was more terrifying than he could have ever imagined, and he knew that he would carry the weight of it with him for the rest of his days. But one thing was certain: he would never forget the horrors that lurked in the depths of the basement, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to seek them out.